Hello there everyone, it's Eternal Snowman here with another Uber's tier list video, and I'm here to talk about the B plus and lower tier Pokemon. And let's open up with B plus. Okay, if you don't know what's going on, I have just rated the finest Pokemon in the Uber's metagame, the S plus and up Pokemon, and I am now going to rate the B plus and lower Pokemon. And essentially, every Pokemon that I'm going to be talking about in this video is viable in Ubers in some way or another. And the reason why they're viable may be more niche than not. Maybe because I've used them specifically and I think that they're good, low-key, or something like that. But they're going to be mentioned in this video for some reason. And I'll break down essentially what I think each tier is. So in my opinion, S plus is the tier where all the best Pokemon is. S is metagame defining Pokemon. A plus is very consistent Pokemon that are good in multiple situations and can be splashable. Also metagame defining, but less so. A tiers, essentially the A tier are all very good Pokemon, and they fulfill either multiple roles or are limiting Pokemon in multiple roles. S tier are just a cut above that, and then B tier are Pokemon that really have only one role in the metagame, and the reason why they're good at it makes them good, but outside of this role, they can't really do that much. C tier is more that you're playing around. It only has one thing it can do at all, not even in the metagame, and you're playing around that. And sometimes they're good in very specific scenarios, but most of the time they're not. I'm also not going to be talking about Pokemon that aren't worth mentioning at all. So if you think that, I'm leaving something out, then go ahead and tell me. But I'm probably not leaving them out unless I miss something on accident. So let's start off this B plus tier with Celesteela, which might be extremely weird to many of you. Celesteela, probably one of the most used Pokemon in Ubers. Very good at what it does. It's very linear. It's hard to beat what it does, though. And it's weird to say that Celesteela is a B plus tier Pokemon because I've really been frustrated by it a lot recently. It's a very linear Pokemon, though. It doesn't actually beat a lot of Pokemon one-on-one. It beats Arceus Normal, it beats Arceus Ground, and then it starts getting shaky. It's weak to status. It's not super good because it doesn't have reliable recovery. It doesn't provide a lot of utility outside of having Protect, and even then it doesn't always, and Toxic, but not a ton of defensive utility. It has a ground immunity, but then it still doesn't beat Primal Groudon since it fears Fire move. So it's tough to really judge how good it is. It does provide a Z-Geo check, but it loses to all of Zern's other variants. So it's still not super good at it being a Zern check too. So Celesteela, good, super bulky, great typing. It's held back by the fact that it's not fantastic. There's ways to play around it very easily, is what I'm saying. Next up, Dialga. The go-to third rock setter after Primal Groudon and Arceus Fairy. But it's actually a lot more common than it seems, even though I'm saying it's the third most common, because in teams where you want defog Arceus and offensive Primal Groudon, or you want to run an offensive Arceus form and offensive Primal Groudon, or something like that. Essentially, you don't want to be running rocks on other Pokemon. You can run Dialga instead. Dialga is still good in the sense that it's a very good offensive Pokemon. It can also check the things it checks well. It can run, it normally runs Resist Berry, Shucka Berry, but it can also run Chople Berry to beat Mega Lucario and Marshadow. It hits very hard, and it sets rocks, and it's pretty linear. It's a toxic immunity, I guess, but still pretty linear in that sense. Next up, Mega Sableye. While it's technically rated lower than stall Pokemon, Mega Sableye is used in other essentially scenarios other than stall. Mega Sableye Balance is a excuse me. Sorry. Mega Sableye Balance is a playstyle that's been cropping up recently that's been very successful. However, Mega Sableye itself has many problems. While it prevents hazards if you play with it well, a lot of hazard setters have really been found ways around it. Excadrill, for example, just straight up ignores it. Pokemon like or DOS has Skill Swap, and Cloyster can smash on it if it's not running Will-O-Wisp. And then Scolipede is the only one that doesn't really have anything for Mega Sableye. But the other Pokemon can all threaten in some way. It's also very frail in the sense that it's supposed to be a defensive Pokemon, but it can just be powered through by its offensive, like the offensive Pokemon that's supposed to be checking. Like Primal Kyogre does like 60 to it with an uninvested Scald. Like it's supposed to be a physically defensive Pokemon, but like it still doesn't check a lot of things it's supposed to check, which is one of its main problems as a Pokemon. It's really being used for its ability more than anything else. Which is like, yeah, it's fine, but like that's one thing that's affecting it, and the fact that it kind of creates holes in your team in that sense. It's still very good at what it does because of Magic Bounce, obviously, and it can deter Pokemon such as like Arceus, Support Arceus forms. Speaking of Support Arceus forms, I'm going to be putting 2 Support Arceus forms down, Arceus Dark and Arceus Water, which I'll just be talking about at the same time. But while they do 2 different things, they're essentially at their core a Support CS form. Weak to Toxic, weak to most status forms, weak to just strong moves, very bulky naturally, and it just depends on their typing. Arceus Water normally runs Judgment or Ice Beam, Toxic, Defog, Recover. It's used to check Pokemon such as Mega Men, such as Rayquaza, such as Primal Groudon. Super linear. My main problem with it is that it doesn't do what it really wants to do, because it can't run both Judgment and Judgment, Ice Beam, and Toxic, and Defog, and Recover. It wants all 5 of those moves. It can't get them, so it's forced to drop something and then become setup bait for something. Like it can just become setup bait for the Lucario, for example, if you're not running Judgment. As such, Arceus Water isn't super good. It has lost a lot of viability since its glory days in ORS. However, it's still good, still can be threatening, but it's just easily built into teams now that its checks and counters, like Dialga, Celesteela, Mega Sableye, Primal Kyogre, Arceus Ground to an extent, Mega Gengar, Xerneas, Yveltal to an extent even. Like, it's just not as good of a Pokemon as it used to be because of its like suboptimal matchups. And depending on which one you're running, you're going to be losing even more matchups. So, just a thought. Arceus Dark, on the other hand, nerfed in viability. It used to be a very good Pokemon. Nerfed in viability because of Marshadow. It provides an all-important Ghost resist. However, it doesn't resist the Ghost type in question, which is Marshadow. Arceus Dark has some other problems, such as, its weakness to fighting and its weakness to Fairy mean that you're going to be struggling in some matchup between Marshadow and Xerneas, which is bad. Very bad. And it's just not as good as it used to be. It's still viable. It is the best Perish Trapper in the tier, which is its Whirlpool Perish Song set is super threatening, and it's the best stall breaker in the tier. However, it's hard to fit that onto your team because of the fact that it loses to most other matchups. So, moving on. Lunala. Many people might be kind of surprised I put Lunala this low, actually. But Lunala, I think, has received a lot of nerfs because of Marshadow once again. It's affecting a big portion of the tier. Like I said, it's more of a team building aspect more than anything else. Lunala, severely hampered by the fact that it was already a very prep form mon, but also okay, the Pokemon that I was actually thinking of for stall is Alola-Muk, but like whatever. Lunala, already a super prep form mon, but with the introduction of Marshadow, it just becomes like pretty much it's thrown to the side of the road, and it really has to evolve to run different sets to be able to bypass Marshadow. And outside of running it in like psychic terrain and using Scarf, like really, you're really gonna do that? It can like one-time check it because of the its Scarf sets can one-time check it with Shadow Sneak or with Shadow Shield and force it out, or like threaten to force it out. But it's like Z Hypnosis sets can be niche. It's like Z move sets can be cool. Ghostium Z sets can be cool, but still not super good. It doesn't have an amazing speed tier, and mainly it's just overshadowed by Marshadow in most part, and to an extent also Arceus Ghost. But that's about it about Lunala. Fell from its glory days. And next up is going to be, is that it? For the B+ tier, I believe that is it. That looks like it's about it. Unless I'm missing a support CS form. Okay. That's about it. Okay. So, moving on to the B tier. And many people may be... Oh, actually, no. I did miss something. Deoxys attack in the B+ tier. Deoxys attack. Okay. Now, I'm going to explain myself here because Deoxys attack is not a Pokemon that you would normally see in the B+ tier. People might be rating it A+, even like... I mean, I guess A- maybe, but like Deoxys attack, really, what struggles for me, okay, once again, does not like Marshadow. It has Prio that threatens, Marshadow is Prio that threatens it, and it doesn't, its E-Speed doesn't hit it. It's immune by, it's two of its common attacks are immune by Marshadow, but mainly the reason why it's bad, in my opinion, is because it has a bad matchup spread against Stall. It doesn't do super well against BO either. It's weak to Prio, and it doesn't provide a ton of defensive utility, so, I mean, not at all, actually. And it can be easily exploited because its powerful moves use stat drops, and so outside of Psychic Terrain, it doesn't really have a lot of, like, offensive utility either, like, outside of just hitting really hard. And so Deoxys attack really, in my opinion, like, can be an easily exploitable mon. It's very good to just hit things hard, and it can exploit bad players well, but at the same time it's a lot more easily played around in certain like as long as you have a team that isn't just weak to the common types it uses. Okay, but moving on to the B tier, we're starting off with probably the most controversial decision I'm going to be making in this tier list. Megaments in B tier. Yes, why do I think this is the case? Common metagame trends are all against Megaments. Every single one is against Megaments in my opinion. Choice Scarf Eviltal bodies Megaments. Choice Scarf Zern bodies Megaments. Marshadow bodies Megaments. Celesteela Dialga support CS all running Ice Beam. Ice coverage being amazing in the tier. So many common Pokemon are just beating Megaments. And Megaments' main playstyle DOS-HO, which is the main one that you'd be seeing it on, outside of like certain balance builds, which don't even run it that much anymore. That playstyle got deleted. And so Megaments really struggles to find its place in the metagame because I find very little reason to be running Megaments over a Pokemon like Rayquaza, which doesn't require the Mega Slot, which doesn't require like other support. It brings Prio to the table, and it has other coverage options, which Ments cannot run because it's just weaker than a Ray at running just other options. And it can be walled by very common metagame Pokemon such as Zygarde, such as like Primal Groudon, even if they're running HP Ice or Roar. And like Mega Mence just doesn't bring to the table what it once did. And that's the main problem, because Mega Mence was a very good nuke. It just doesn't have that much of a punch anymore. And flying has kind of gotten a nerf in viability in this tier recently, just because of the way that a lot of teams have been built around multiple steel Pokemon and stuff. Mega Mence just doesn't do the same that it used to do. Losing to the best Pokemon in the tier also definitely doesn't help it. Obviously, it's a very good Pokemon. It hits hard. D-Dance. It hits hard with Aerialate, but I'm saying it doesn't really do as much as it used to want to do. Arceus Rock is next. I always thought this was one of the better Arceus forms. It doesn't really move up. It's good against Yveltal, but it's bad against Marshadow. Kind of balances out. Always been relatively bad against Pidon. It's a defog Arceus form. Beats a lot of the Stealth Rock setters when it's running Fire Blast. It can also run Will-O-Wisp to bypass some of the Stealth Rock setters. Not much to say about it. It's a pretty linear mon. It just checks Yveltal, checks Mega Mence, checks all these flying Pokemon, checks like generally just a bulky Pokemon because it's running Spadef and stuff. Can be good in certain matchups, but the problem with it is that it doesn't really always excel in matchups if the opponent isn't running what you think they're going to be running. If they're running a Zygarde, if they're running a Dialga, they're running the Mega Sableye or whatever, it can just be hindered by these things. And Rock isn't a great offensive typing by itself either. And moving on, more Arceus forms. Arceus Dragon. Just a generic. It's just, in my opinion, it's the penultimate. It's pretty much just the all support Arceus forms put together, and that's Arceus Dragon. It doesn't really do anything special outside of not being weak to everything that other Arceus forms are. And it provides useful resistances, but at the same time it's Zern weak. So that's kind of where I'm drawing this Arceus Dragon thing from. It's useful, but not. It's weak to Zern, so what are you going to do? Moving on, more Pokemon in the B tier. Looking through. I know there's another Pokemon I wanted to put here. What? You say what? Oh, Chansey was also part of the stall Pokemon. Oh, right, that's right. Next Pokemon on this list is Ferrothorn. Super good at what it does. However, it's depending on matchups, it can be very useless because it's setup bait for a lot of Pokemon such as Mega Lucario, such as CM Arceus forms, such as Lunala, Dialga, Pokemon that, and also it can't do a huge amount of damage to the Steel resists because Leech Seed, while it's annoying to deal with if you're just trying to break through it straight up, it can't really do. It only does 12.5%, so you can ignore it, and so it can give opportunities to set up or do things like rest. So Ferrothorn, it's good at setting rocks. It's a good rock setter. It's good at annoying offensive teams that are just trying to break through it and don't have setup moves to to actually break through it. But it's good at what it does, as in it annoys offense. It's hard to kill by itself, and I mean that's about it. There's not like a huge amount to say. Okay, and then it also does beat ZGO Zern, and to an extent it beats Zern as well in the normal Zern, but it relies on Focus Blast missing or it not running HP Fire, so not a solid check to Zern at all. And in the B- tier, this is where we're going into a lot of Zern checks. Lots of Zern checks. And we're going to start off with Mega Metagross, my favorite Mega into using Ubers. One of the most solid Zern checks. At full HP, it checks every single variant of Zern. However, it can get weakened, and then it becomes not as much of a solid check. Can run Psych Up to counter sweep Zerns. It can run. It can run Ice Punch, Toxic, Earthquake, lots of different sets to bypass its so-called checks and counters. Not much to say about Mega Metagross. Just overall solid Zern check that can run coverage options to be what it needs to be. Wait, give me 1 second. Alright, let's continue. AG Slash and Magearna, which I'm going to be slashing together. Magearna. I think AG Slash and Magearna are pretty much the same mon. They pretty much do the same thing, but just for different teams, because their primary use is Zern check, but they do different things. And AG Slash beats support CS better than Magearna. Magearna beats Yveltal better. So it depends on what your team needs. Beating support CS is very important in Ubers. Having Toxic, unless you're running HO, most teams want Toxic to be able to beat support CS, as that's the primary way to break them down, other than just like SDP on or something like that. But that's about it. I think those two. So a lot of Zern checks in the B- tier, which is kind of a testament to how good Zern is, because you're forced to run Pokemon that are in B- tier to be able to beat it. And continuing on with the Zern train, Arceus Poison, probably the best of better Arceus, one of the better Arceus, the only Arceus set that fully checks standard Geo Zern outside of Psyshock. It can counter sweep with Psych Up Sludge Bomb. It can also run Stealth Rocks. It can run Defog. It can run just like standard Toxic sets that can threaten balance a lot. Very bulky. Pretty much works the same way as other support CS mon in other matchups that aren't a Zern matchup, but it also checks Zern as well. Mainly, its main weakness is that you're stacking ground weaknesses, because a lot of you're probably going to be running steals with it or something. Arceus Poison stacks ground weakness. Arceus Poison does provide Toxic immunity, which it does have over other support CS forms. And its defensive typing isn't amazing, because it doesn't have the same resists other types do. And other Arceus forms, Arceus Grass. A very underrated form of Arceus. Its main uses is as a Stealth Rocker, and that's because it can set up Stealth Rocks in many situations, mainly against Primal Kyogre, against Ferrothorn, against Zygarde, and these Pokemon, because it has like some useful resistances. Mainly it's a ground resist, it's a water resist. So it can really help in certain matchups. However, it's not as good of a Pokemon as it once was in previous generations, in Gen 5 for example. It's very bulky, and while it maintains like a whatever typing, it can run other options to beat some of its more notable checks and counters, like Ice Beam for Zygarde. It can run, Ice Beam for Mega Ments and Zygarde, and Rayquaza, Toxic to threaten other stuff, and then Fire Blast, of course. Just standard support to this stuff at this point. And moving on, other notable Pokemon in this tier. Mega Mewtwo X, which I'll be labeling as MM. I'll just type it out. Mega Mewtwo X. And Y. Mega Mewtwo Y nerfed in Viability. Mega Mewtwo X, main problem with it is that it doesn't really want to run Psychic Stab, but now is relatively forced to. It's very good in the sense that fighting types have been pretty good recently, with the steel stacking and such. And running it alongside something like a dark type for the ghost types can really threaten a good portion of the metagame, outside of the fact that you just straight lose to Zern. But losing to Zern is relatively common at this point. And so both Mega Mewtwo forms are very good offensively, and also have a pretty niche, which I think is very good defensive set, Stallbreaker set, because of it. They're great speed tier. That's their main advantage over anything else. Mega Mewtwo X is a great E-Killer check on bulky offense, for example. Mega Mewtwo Y, its stall set isn't as prominent in my opinion as Mega Mewtwo X due to its worse defensive stats, but it can hit extremely hard with future sight stats with Psy Strike too. So both good offensive Pokemon, not super good defensively. Psychic is a very bad typing for defensive purposes. Marshadow also threatens it with the Sneak, etc., etc. Normal Mewtwo is not rated with them because I think it's just whatever right now because of the fact that the Arceus forms came out. Sorry, the Mega forms came out. Going through what other Pokemon. I think those are the only Pokemon that are worth mentioning in this tier. I'm just gonna go through all the Pokemon in OU and UU to make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see. Oh, and Smeargle should be included inside Suicide Leads, but it's not as good as the other ones. Oh, okay. No, I did miss some. I did miss two Pokemon actually. So the first up is Tyranitar / Mega Tyranitar because they do similar things. Of course, Mega Tyranitar. The reason I think Mega Tyranitar is better than Tyranitar, but it's pretty much just rated here because, obviously you have to use a Mega Stone to use it, so that kind of just nerfs its viability. Mega Tyranitar and Tyranitar are very good ghost trappers. It beats all the standard ghosts, so non-Marshadow ghosts. And also, they check things like Ho-Oh, Yveltal, Lugia, and which are all rated pretty high. And Giratina Origin. So Giratina Origin, Arceus Ghost, Mega Gengar, and Lunala, the 4 standard ghosts, but it doesn't check Marshadow. Depending on what you're running in the 4th move slot, because it's probably going to be running Stealth Rocks, Pursuit, it's going to be running Pursuit, Rock move, and then Megas run Stealth Rocks, and then 4th move, while the other 2 moves are free on normal Tyranitar, which can run Status and Crunch, or like Stealth Rocks Crunch, or like Stealth Rocks Status, or Stealth Rocks Foul Play. A lot of viable options. And depending on what it runs, it can threaten different stuff. So, for example, you can bait Xerneas to Geo on you, and then you can roar it out. You can run Toxic to deal with to make sure Primal Groudon and Arceus Ground don't switch in for free. You can run like Low Kick for Arceus Dark. Just depends on what you want to be, I guess. And the other Pokemon that I forgot to mention is Tapu Koko. One of the most underrated Pokemon, in my opinion. Tapu Koko has one real set, Tapunium Z. Very good at threatening offense. It's 75%, can chip very hard. Means that nothing can really set up on it for free. On top of the fact that it's U-turn and taunt. It also provides a much needed Yveltal check, which is rare on offense. So I think it's a niche Pokemon that can be run on offense that is pretty good. It can supposedly support its teammates, but electric coverage isn't common in Ubers. So outside of like Xerneas, you don't really see it. So yeah, Tapu Koko. Good Pokemon at what it does. Not as strong as it would like to be, but its 75% can really break through defensive teams, along with time. And the fact that it blocks rest is nice, so you can use it to block Kyogre rest, to block Zygarde rest. Okay, and then in the C plus tier, we're going to be going through some more niche options that are normally not very good, but can hold their ground in certain matchups. So I think everything in B minus and above, so all of these Pokemon that I've listed, these will all be useful. These should all be in mind when you're team building, because they're going to be the Pokemon that are good, the Pokemon that you should be using in most scenarios. And so everything below this has a niche in the metagame, and is used for a reason outside of just, like, essentially all of these Pokemon can be justified to have a specific role. The Pokemon below it are generally outclassed except for in very specific scenarios. We're going to start off with a personal favorite of mine, Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur provides a toxic immunity. It's very good at being support CS forms. It's good at checking Primal Kyogre, and these things. But it's easily weakened. It's prone to status, and it's weak to Psychic, which isn't super good. And it's weak to Flying, which is also not super good. It does provide a Zern check. Very important. Why Mega Venusaur has risen in viability for me is because it has become a Pokemon that is good at checking Marshadow, which not much else can boast. Because outside of the Z moveset, Mega Venusaur can beat all other variants. Like one-on-one. Since close combat is resisted, doesn't really take a ton from the other moves either. Next up is Arceus Steel, the most niche Arceus form. Probably the best CM form on its own. I would say Arceus Ghost is better CM form in general, but Arceus Steel is because Arceus Ground has another, Arceus Ghost has another set, but Arceus Steel is very binary, very linear in the set. It only runs one set, which is CM. And it can be good at cleaning up, toxic immune, which is how you beat a lot of Arceus forms. But it is weak to ground types, so take that how you will. It also loses to, like, Celesteela and Ho-Oh, so, like, not much to do about that. Steel isn't an amazing offensive typing either. And that's about it. Not much to say about it. It's just a CM form. It runs Earth Power and Judgment, so that's it doesn't really do anything. In matchups, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. Moving on, Darkrai, another Pokemon that's very niche. It runs Z movesets, threatening with Nasty Plot. Z movesets. It doesn't find a ton of opportunity to set up, and at this point, it's pretty much just overshadowed by Marshadow. Fuck, that pun was terrible, but Darkrai, not super good anymore. Used to be a very good Pokemon. Nerfs to sleep essentially made it unviable. You can run Hypnosis on it, but, like, it's not super good. It's relying on 60% accuracy moves. Pokemon that is really frail. And, shoot. My throat's starting to hurt, so give me a sec. Let me drink some water. The other Tapu form is next. Tapu Lele. And the Pokemon that has essentially formed an archetype of its own, Psy Spam. Why is it ranked so low? Tapu Lele by itself is terrible as a Pokemon. It's pretty much only used for its ability. By Uber standards, Tapu Lele is just not viable straight up. Doesn't really do that much by itself. outside of leering stuff, and if you're just not retarded, you can just play around it. But the problem with Side Spam now is that it kind of struggles against Marshadow and Scarf Yveltal and Scarf Stern, these Pokemon that are very common. It's another HO form that's just losing viability more. It's not super viable. It has a niche in Ubers, in the sense that it blocks Prio, which is one of the important parts about Ubers, but like blocking Prio isn't a huge deal if you're having to pretty much sacrifice a slot to do it. Okay, moving on. I hope you guys don't need a ton of explanation at this point because there's still quite a few mons to get through. Mewtwo, not much to say. It's not super good. It's essentially just a version of Mega Mewtwo Y that's just powered down, but doesn't require Mega Stone. And just so you guys know, all the Mega Forms are taken into account that you cannot run another Mega Form, and this is the same as Arceus. So I would say that even though Mega Gengar is rated as A+, it's probably an S tier mon in itself, but it takes up the Mega slot, which means you cannot be running another Mega Pokemon with it. And so, like, for example, you can't run cores like Mega Gengar plus Mega Lucario. Otherwise, like, that should be, like, very good. And Mega Lucario would increase in viability in that sense. But because of these things, Mega Gang, and Arceus as well, because you can't be running multiple Arceus forms, these things are taken into account when ranking these Pokemon, so they're ranked lower than how well they actually perform because of their restrictions on your team building. Support CS is super good because of what it can do, but it also means you cannot be running an offensive Arceus form. Essentially, that's why Pokemon like Arceus Water and Arceus Dark are lower than they probably are realistically, because you can't run another Arceus form with them. Same with Mega Sableye, because the two archetypes that you run Mega Sableye on, while on stall it is the best Mega, and really the only viable Mega, on balance there's a lot of other Megas that you could be running. And the Mega Sableye balance archetype has a lot to do around Mega Sableye, but like those balance archetypes can still function well with another Mega in its slot. And that's also the reason why Mega Mence is so low, because I see very little reason to run it on a team where you could just run Ray and Lucario instead of Mence plus like whatever else you're going to be running. Mega T-Tar also rated low, even though I think it's a fantastic mon because of the fact that it's a Mega. Same with Mega Metagross, etc. And on the same vein, okay, and then another Pokemon in the C+ tier, Palkia. Z Heal Block is its main niche. It gets the +2 special attack. However, it needs to run either Sub or Fire Blast in its last slot, and depending on which one you're running, you're going to be losing to stuff. Palkia isn't super fast. It loses to a lot of stuff just naturally. It's not super strong without setting up, and it doesn't really get free setup opportunities. Its two common stabs are immune by the two of the best Pokemon in the tier, Water by Primal Groudon and Dragon by Xerneas. So, that struggles. And it also is forced to run a Z move to be even viable, which, once again, taking away from team building, because only Z move users, like Darkrai, like Palkia, that need Z moves to succeed, just aren't very good. Because you'd rather be running the Z move on a better Pokemon generally. And while a lot of the top Pokemon don't rely on Z move, like Yveltal can run Z moves a lot to essentially boost its viability, because more viable sets means Yveltal is more threatening. When it's only linear, Z moves aren't super threatening to Pokemon when you already know what is coming, is what I'm saying. Okay, and continuing on, I believe that should wrap up the C+ tier, unless, oh, no. Kyurem White is going to be another Pokemon in this tier. It's not, once again, a linear Pokemon. It struggles against Pokemon like Primal Kyogre. It's almost always forced into running choice sets because it's lacking. You need Choice Specs to wall break properly, while Choice Scarf is needed to patch up its whatever speed. It has a lot of trouble against Pokemon like Spadef Celesteela, like Dialga, like Xerneas, like Spadefdon. It's a lot of support use forms. It's hard to switch into as specs, but at the same time, it has a lot of counterplay. And on that point, it doesn't do as much as you want it to in every game because it's easily weakened. It has a Stealth Rock's weakness. Its defensive typing is garbage, and one of its stabs is immune by Xerneas, so that's always shit. And Xerneas weak Pokemon aren't good when they're that low on the tier list essentially, and they're not doing that much for your team outside of just hitting hard, which you can get with other Pokemon that provide other offensive utilities. Have a better speed tier, speed control and stuff, etc., etc. It still hits very hard though, and it has almost no switch-ins, but that's about all it does. And I believe, unless I'm missing something. Oh no, okay. Dugtrio is next up. Dugtrio, super good Pokemon in OU. In Ubers, it doesn't do as much as you want it to. It's weak. 100 base attack is weak as hell. So it's forced to run boosting moves to be able to kill what it wants to. It's also forced into a lot of speed ties. It doesn't trap a lot of things either, but it can do what it needs to. AKA, it can activate its Tectonic Rage on a Primal Groudon and just OHKO it. Or like OHKO, deal like a ton of damage to it. But it doesn't trap as many things in Ubers as it does in OU because of how weak it is. As such, it can only really trap like a small portion of the metagame. And like top tiers are generally not really trapped by it. With the only relevant Pokemon being trapped by it is Primal Groudon, and then like Mega Lucario kind of, but like most Pokemon aren't, so it doesn't do as much in the metagame as it does in OU. And with that, the Ubers tier list is pretty much wrapped up. The only thing I want to talk about now is niche Pokemon that I think the C tier. Okay, so in C plus are Pokemon that you can use in some situations. What I'm saving C tier for is for essentially what I would call meme Pokemon, or what other people would call meme Pokemon. But they have a niche in Ubers, but it's very small, and you have to essentially play with the information that they don't have information to be able to use them effectively. And so I'll just go through a list of Pokemon that have options in Ubers, but they don't really do as much in practice as you really want them to. And so I'll really just be going through and listing a couple Pokemon. Thunderstherian, Scizor, Jirachi, Scizor / Mega Scizor. Let me scroll up, sorry. Wait a second. Blaziken / Mega Blaziken. Genesect, Kyogre, other Arceus forms, none really worth mentioning. I guess Arceus Ice, Arceus Ice / Electric, which do similar things in the sense that they're CM sweepers that have good coverage, but that's about it. Not super good. Landorus. Landorus. I Incarnate and Therian. Both have their own niche. Both are just whatever Pokemon though overall. And then Shaman Sky and Solgaleo. Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't want to fit. Shaman Sky, Solgaleo. Okay. Well, essentially, I'll just talk about a bunch of Pokemon that I've used before that I see could potentially have potential. That they have some potential, but they don't really do as much in practice as you really want them to. So I'll start off. I think Jirachi is probably the most promising out of this bunch. Jirachi actually has potential in the sense that it can really do things, since the Zern check has Healing Wish. It can spread status, etc., etc. It can actually do things that other Pokemon that are similar to it really can't. So it provides a real niche that the other Pokemon can't. Shaman Sky as well, in the same vein that it has Healing Wish, it can do stuff like flinch Pokemon to death. It's strong, kind of, if you get drops and choice specs or something. Solgaleo, Webs is okay matchup. It can get used Z-Splash, but it's kind of meme. Doesn't do that much. Landorus, Incarnate, and Therian, like, you obviously know what they're going to do. Landorus just runs a Life Orb set and then hits hard, but, like, if you just, it's like a wet paper. It, like, crumples like a wet noodle. It just doesn't, it literally just, like, dies to everything. RCS Ice and Electric are pretty good at breaking balance, but at the same time, they're not super good against every other playstyle. Kyogre has niche sets like Choice Scarf, and also like its Z move, ICM Z move. Genesect has Choice Scarf, Blaziken. I mean, it can run Sash Reversal, while Mega Blaziken can run just SD sets. Thunderous Therian can also run Z move sets. Bulu support its team with grassy terrain mainly. That's about all it can do. And while it's quite good at that, it doesn't really do that much in Ubers outside of that. Scizor can revenge kill Xerneas and that kind of stuff, but it's still relatively weak outside of that. It can run some SD sets, but like it still loses to Zern in the sense that it gets 2-hit KO'd. Oh, actually, I did forget to mention a Pokemon. In C tier or B minus tier, Mega Gyarados, which, sorry, I forgot to do that. Mega Gyarados is a Pokemon that is very good in breaking stall. Doesn't do much outside of that. It's taunt. It can taunt. You can also bluff taunts, I guess, but its 3 attack set can also be used to break balance a little bit if you have support, but it's not as good as its taunt set generally. DD taunt dual stab, or DD taunt crunch earthquake, or something like that. It's great defensive typing, allows it to set up on a lot of Pokemon, but there's not that much to talk about with that. Other niche Pokemon are like Kartana, which isn't good, but you can run it. Greninja can be a suicide lead. Mega Lopunny is pretty good in the sense that it can encore some Pokemon and provide setup opportunities for your teammates. Mega Mawile is another potential Zern check that you can use. Not as good as Mega Metagross in certain ways. I don't know. It can be good, but can't at the same time. Depends on your team composition. I don't know. Just going through other Pokemon that can be potentially useful. Uh, I've yet to experiment with Feeny, but I haven't heard good things about it either. Mega Alakazam can be useful, kind of, but it's not amazing in any stress, like any sense of the word. Um, and you can use Garchomp as well. These are just like some general ideas that you can just go off and use these Pokemon that just these Pokemon are generally suboptimal for various reasons. Obviously, the lower and lower you go, the less and less Pokemon that you can find are viable. And obviously, they're not viable for different reasons. Um, I've heard Xurkitree can also work as kind of like a sweeper with the Hypno and Tailglow, but I feel like that's just meming, and it can't break a lot of its checks and counters like Primal Groudon anyway. So I don't know why you'd run it. But essentially, that's about it for my tier list. And we made it to the end. I talked about a lot of Pokemon. This took like probably 2 hours or something. Um, but I hope you guys find this useful, and I'll probably be coming up with a team building guide, kind of building off this, more so building off what I'll explain in the team building guide. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time for another whatever content I decide to make next, I guess. And bye bye.